What is going on, everyone? We have, let me see, is this working? Is it working? There we go. All right. So, huge news, and I'm not in a position to do a normal live stream right now, but we got big news today. There has been talk that Asmodee was prepping to sell. They were looking to sell. They had been advertising that they were going to sell to another company for a while now, and it has just happened. Well, it's still in the process, but there is now a buyer, and it's a pretty big deal. The Embracer Group is going to be acquiring 1.75 billion euros, and dude, this is a deal for a number of reasons, and we're going to kind of run through those real quick. And this is something we're going to talk about more, but I just want to do a quick live stream because this is, I think, really big news. I think we should all be talking about it. And this is, it's always interesting when a big company like Asmodee goes to sell, because you're like, wait, is this just, why have they been doing all the things that they've done? Why did they do, and it goes back to like, why did Armada and X-Wing and Legion get moved over to Atomic Mass Games, and why did all this other stuff happen? And why did everybody get laid off, and why did they cancel, or they lay off the entire organized play team at FFG, and all this other stuff. And so all of that got kind of put into context when it was framed that PAI, which was this holdings company that had bought Asmodee years ago, was kind of building and basically prepping the company for sale. Well, the good news is now that sale is kind of locking in, finalizing, and should presumably go through, the Embracer Group will be the new owner. PAI will be out, and everything that I've talked to other people had nothing but negative things to say about PAI. Everything to them was just numbers on a spreadsheet, and they didn't treat people like human beings, and so on and so forth. So basically, the first good thing is any other company other than PAI sounds like it's probably a good thing, right? Well, maybe, because we don't really know that much. Like, granted, having a majority stock holdings in Asmodee doesn't necessarily instantly change things. So don't expect Asmodee selling to be like, oh, everything's totally different now, because it may not be. But what's really interesting about this is the Embracer Group is generally largely affiliated as a gaming group. Like, they're very, very, very interested in games. And so it's like, as soon as I saw that, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. I'm like, thank Kenobi, so yes, so basically this new company that's going to be mostly acquiring the majority of Asmodee is pretty much interested in gaming. Now, this is a very, very good thing. This would put them as like the largest game company in I think in Europe, and that includes not just board games, but video games also. And so this is actually really interesting because they have a lot of video game stuff. And I think one of the CEO or the chairman or something like that, one of the main people at the Embracer Group actually got their roots in comic books. And there's there's a lot of really interesting things. Like, I went and looked at their Twitter feed and something like that. What do they talk about? What do they tweet about? What grinds their gears? What are they all about? And a lot of it is pop culture and video games, and there's some so it's like it's really good to see like a gaming company. Now, the fact that they lean a little bit more into video games shouldn't really be that much of a big deal, because hey, a big company like that, there's certainly more interest in video games, but it's really cool to have for them to have like a major board game and tabletop gaming company like Asmodee in their fold now. So this is a really cool thing. And hopefully will mean that certain decisions are made toward the betterment of board games and board game proliferation and tabletop game proliferation, and basically good for gamers, good for people, type decisions being made, as opposed to, killing off games in their infancy to make a spreadsheet, a decimal, be 1 point higher and things like that. So I think this is a really good thing. Now there's a lot of questions like, wait, what will happen? Like, is there a chance that like the Star Wars games will go back to FFG? Wouldn't that be cool? Like now, and I know that the only reason I say that right away is because I know that that's one of the first things that jumps through my mind. So I know that that's probably one of the first questions that's going to be jumping through other people's minds as well. And that's all it is as a question. I don't know if that will happen. I don't know if there's justification for anything like that to happen. At least in their eyes, I would do it, but that would be me. But yeah, so like that's really interesting. I think everybody involved would be happier. I think AMG would love to not have to deal with doing Star Wars games anymore. So yeah. Swedish games. Wait, hold on. Let me check. We got some chat here. Swedish Games Corner, THQ Nordic, just saw it on the internet. Oh no, please not. Well, no, this isn't a bad thing. No way. AMG is doing a good job, and minis should be consolidated under one studio. Well, my argument with that is that minis were consolidated under one studio. Mostly. You had 3 games under Fantasy Flight Miniatures, and then you moved them all to AMG, which only had 1 game. So you had, so that way didn't make sense to me. And the other reason I have a problem with that is because under FFG, we had dedicated development teams for X-Wing and Armada and Legion, and we just had the Clone Wars for Armada come out, and all of a sudden it's stopped, and AMG was releasing a lot more Marvel Crisis Protocol. You were getting new characters every month, right? So there was so much more happening the old way. It seems like by moving everything over to AMG, they hit this huge speed bump, and and it seems like it ground so many things to a halt. And I know that's just a perception. I know that a lot of that has to do with the global shipping situation and things like that. But they've lost all of the talent behind that made all of those games at the same time. So I feel like a lot of those changes were made to prep for the sale, and now that the sale has happened, I wonder if it won't be time to revisit things. And that might not mean necessarily taking everything away from AMG. That might mean expanding AMG with a dedicated AMG Star Wars department, right? Because I've always gotten the feeling that there's people at AMG that loathe Star Wars. There's people at AMG that want to mock Star Wars by always painting things pink, right? Like I've always kind of gotten that feeling, especially when live streams happen and they insult X-Wing players and things like that. So like I just don't know if if things are going to stay the same or if things are going to change. I would probably give it at least 6 months. No, I wouldn't ever advocate firing the AMG team. I think they do a great job at a lot of things. I think Will Schick and Will Pagani and Dallas Kemp and all of those guys, like they made Marvel Crisis Protocol a fantastic game. So I think they should absolutely keep doing that. And I can't wait to see what their next game is. I just miss my old Star Wars games and the teams that made them, and I miss a lot of that. Will Schick gets a bad rap unfairly? Probably, and I've given some criticism, and I think that some of my criticism is fair. Like calling X-Wing a tower defense game was a bridge too far, and maybe I harp on that a little bit too much. I might be a little unfair to Will Schick sometimes. I still care about the guy. He's a nice guy, and I wish him all the success in the world, and I'm definitely a big fan of Marvel Crisis Protocol. So I like what he has done outside of my Star Wars criticisms. So, you know, again, I'm not trying to be, I'm trying to really balance my criticism while not necessarily being a shill. You know, I never want to like be a shill for any of these companies. But at the same time, I don't want to thrive on negative publicity. I don't want to be one of those people. I don't like people that do that. And so again, I try to just stay balanced, and that's kind of where I'm at with the whole thing. But no, I don't think those guys are great guys. I think a lot of the, you know, the AMG team, everybody we've had, you know, interactions with, they all seem like really great people. So I hope that the team expands, and maybe, you know, or something like that. I don't really think everything will go back to FFG, because what are they going to do? They're going to have to hire new people. They already laid off all those people, and I don't think those people are going to want to come back. You know what I'm saying? So like, really, what's going to happen, right? It's very interesting. AMG is, I would bet that AMG will see some impact from this. Not necessarily, I don't know if it'll be positive or negative or just lateral, but I think that this might now open up opportunities for, hey, they like Star Wars and Marvel comics and stuff like that. They want to ramp up, you know, they want to aim, you know, push more of the budget this way, so maybe they can expand the teams a little bit more and things like that. So this could be very, very good news. And this also means, also with the Embracer Group having so many ties into video games, we might see more video game tie-ins into board games, or vice versa. So like, that's really cool. Asmodee Digital already has a whole bunch of like board games that are digital, so we might see more of that stuff. I wonder if this will have any impact on the the tabletop simulator community that is out there. I wonder if they'll be like, okay, let's make our own version of this, and let's shut down all these mods for tabletop simulator or something like that. I wonder if something like that would happen. There's always been rumors that like, when was the mouse gonna crack down on TTS and stuff like that. And I also wonder how this will affect how this will affect certain relationships too. Certain relationships that exist. Is the selling fixed or just in discussion? It's well, I think it's moved past the first stages of discussion into making media now. It's not completely finalized yet, but it is, because I think there's just money and bank loans and things that have to be approved at this point. I did link a link to the full article in the video description, so you should see it down there if you want to go read it over on Board Game Geek, because this was just published a little not long ago. And I wanted to just talk about it a little bit like right now with you guys, since it's breaking news. And like, I've been trying to do, I haven't done as much breaking news lately because there hasn't really been much breaking news. So I thought that this would be a fun thing to just talk about, because I think this is a really good deal. So this was good for two reasons. Well, first off, it's just good that the company doesn't have to be prepped for sale anymore. It means, in other words, when you prep a company for sale, you kind of inflate it and make it look as pretty as possible. And usually that comes with it at a cost. And one of those big costs is like layoffs and things like that have to happen. Departments have to get cut, budgets have to get cut. Hopefully all that stuff is at an end now. Nobody's job should be in jeopardy now and things like that. And then the other good thing is that this Embracer Group is, you know, so gaming focused that that basically whoever, you know, whatever they start, you know, they're I guess I'm stumbling around it. What I'm trying to say is that like, the people that are going to be pulling the strings now are hopefully going to be pulling the strings that are good for gaming, and that's good for you and me, and definitely for the folks at AMG and for Asmodee as a whole. I think this is going to be a very good thing. I think PAI, the previous company, did enough damage to AMG. A lot of damage to AMG, and to Asmodee, and to Fantasy Flight Games, and to all of these companies, that this is going to be, I have very, very high hopes for this new announcement. So that's basically the announcement. I missed some chat here. Let's see here. Rod says, I don't think that AMG was ever truly interested in FFG Star Wars games. Asmodee's objective was to downsize FFG so they could transfer the Star Wars game. Yeah, I don't know if it was downsizing FFG specifically. I mean, that ended up happening. I don't know if that was their goal, or if the goal was just to, on paper, say we have a consolidated miniatures studio. Because I'm sure somebody at PAI asked, why do you have All right, you split up Fantasy Flight boarding card and Fantasy Flight miniatures. And this is not even me speculating or rumor mill. It's on the products. There was a studio called Fantasy Flight Miniatures. I've got the documentation. Look at my Legion unboxings. The last couple of Legion unboxings. It says Fantasy Flight Miniatures with John Schaefer as head of studio. Right? He wasn't the head of studio of Fantasy Flight Games boarding card. Right? He was head of studio of Fantasy Flight Miniatures. And so I think somebody said, wait, you've got two miniatures studios. You've got Fantasy Flight Miniatures, and then you've got Atomic Mass Games. Now, Atomic Mass Games was new, but the splitting of Fantasy Flight Miniatures was also new. Right? And so AMG had seniority as an independent studio if you looked at Fantasy Flight Miniatures as a brand new thing. And I think maybe that's why they said, all right, we need to consolidate. And maybe the AMG folks said no. And so they're like, all right, well, let's not give, maybe there was more to be lost. Like maybe they said to somebody like, all right, well, you take on all these other games, I don't know. Maybe some people, I don't know all the discussions that went in and why the move was made, the direction it was made. But I think part of that was that they hadn't officially announced AMG or Fantasy Flight Miniatures as becoming its own studio in a formal announcement. It was only leaked out by Steve Horvath at a Gamma conference at the very, very beginning of 2020, before COVID even was kind of running rampant through most of the world. It was still kind of in its infancy at that point. So yeah, like this is, I think they figured, hey, we can do the least amount of damage that way. If we take apart AMG, which is already kind of big now with Marvel Crisis Protocol, there'll be a lot more blowback than if we take apart a studio that, as far as a lot of people know, doesn't even exist yet. And I think that's probably why the problem is, though, that so many people lost their jobs as a result of that. And that's really unfortunate. So I don't know if they're going to do anything to change that. Maybe there'll be some new hirings. I would love for them to get Armada back in development. I think this is a good time to get Armada back in new product development, hire some more teams, get an X-Wing Armada and a Legion team, and get these games back going into full swing. I know AMG has another game planned, and that's got to certainly cut into the budget and the time and development team's efforts to get all this other stuff. Who knows if by now there's not a third game planned as well. So with all of these games coming out, and all these new products that are coming out, but I feel like the new product release has really slowed and it's ground to a creeping crawl right now, and hopefully this will get things going faster. Obviously we're still limited by big limited by the shipping situation being what it is, but things still ship, and so I don't think the shipping crisis is totally to blame for the drop in new product announcements and stuff like that, because we're not just waiting on shipping. Like AMG already said, look, we're not even developing new content for Armada right now, and I think that looking back, I think that was pretty smart, because they had 3 games to learn, and little did we know they were going to fire everybody from FFG, so or just about. I don't know if there's anybody left. I don't know if anybody is still over there. But yes, and so Richard says, I wonder if it's a move to acquire IP for video games. And I think I touched on that earlier a little bit, but that is definitely a big thing, is that when they have so many ties to video game companies with the Embracer Group, there have been so many more crossovers between video games and board games, whether it's popular video game licenses getting a board game iteration, or vice versa with Asmodee Digital taking so many Ticket to Ride, it was just in the news today, and stuff like that, and all these board games via digital. I know that Asmodee has been wanting to kind of have their own platforms, such that people aren't just playing all these board games on TTS. They've been kind of wanting to have their own dedicated platforms. I wonder how that all is going to work out. Will TTS still have a lot of Asmodee games, or are they going to look to shut a lot of that stuff down? I don't know. But I think it's interesting. There's a lot of there's a lot of video games that I think would make really great adaptations into board gaming. Although I don't think that every video game needs to, but sometimes you can get a great, it has happened a couple of times where, You just get a license, and instead of just, you know, making a board game out of it and it being a crap game, every once in a while a licensed game comes on and hits just a, like, becomes like a skin over what is a really, really good game engine. Look at Battlestar Galactica, for example. Great, great game, and had a perfect blend of license to kind of be that skin that went over that game engine. And it's evidence, because Unfathomable is still a good game. With the Lovecraftian theme, it's a little bit less, because it'd been nicer to have a nice skin on it. So there's certain games I would love to see reskinned or rethemed with some tweaks to make them be maybe of an IP or something that is more likable. So yeah. So very, very interesting. So let's see. And I did miss, somebody said Simone. Yeah, Simone is still there. True. She was more of an Asmodee person than an FFG specific person, though. But I don't think they can fire the head of studio. Well, I don't think the studio can fire the head of studio. Let's see. AMG should have been folded in. The game doesn't have legs, and they don't know why they're doing a Star Wars product. I don't know. They clearly know why they are. But it's also clear that this was overwhelming to them, and at times it certainly seems that some people there don't want anything to do with Star Wars stuff. I think they've been working on trying to mask that a little bit and deal with that. So yeah, no, all right. I mean, that's really all I can say right now. So if you are just tuning in, Asmodee is in the process of actually finally now being sold to the Embracer Group for almost 3 billion euros. The whole article is linked down in the description, but it's a very good thing, because first off, the sale will be complete, so we can stop seeing crazy, dumb ideas happen to make the company look more profitable, stop seeing people getting laid off. And then second, Embracer Group being a games-centric, company is very good. I mean, a lot of us have said that, well, like, one of the best case scenarios would be that a gaming company buys Asmodee. And it almost felt like a pipe dream. It almost felt like a pipe dream. So yeah. Do you think this is why we never saw the mysterious new game we were expecting to see during Mini Stravaganza? They might have held it. That's a very good question. I think there's two reasons for that. For one, AMG was working on game number 2. Steve Horvath mentioned that beginning of 2020. So it's obviously been in the work for a while. I think Mini Stravaganza would have probably been the time to outline it if this Asmodee sale never happened and AMG didn't have 3 Star Wars games dropped in their lap, because then they would have had more development time to play test and tweak and fine tune and get into production this other game, and it would have been a good time to introduce game number 2. So I think it's not just the sale, but also the acquisition of all of the Star Wars games that's just said, hold on. We need to get something rolling for these Star Wars games. We got 10 people working on Marvel, this Marvel Crisis Protocol. Maybe we got 8 people working on game number 2. All of a sudden, guys, bring it back in. We need to get something. All right, which one of these Star Wars games can we do? Well, Legion's closest to Marvel Crisis Protocol in that it has miniatures on a sprue and kind of, it's dudes on a map. Okay, that's going to be the game we're going to try to support the most. What about, I've played X-Wing before. Okay, all right, we can do something with X-Wing. All right, but I want to change the rules completely. Okay, well, that's fine. Go ahead, do whatever you want. We got anybody who plays Armada? Not at the moment. Okay, shelve that. Now, all right, and put the game number 2 on hold. YouTube guys that are left over, still keep working on it. Guys and gals, still keep working on game number 2, but that's probably going to be delayed by a year or 2. That's my guess. It's very rough. Back what happened behind it all. It would be great to see a Star Wars Armada digital game on PC, man. I just did Bridge Commander, man. Did you see my stream where I did Star Trek Bridge Commander? That is kind of like Star Wars Armada, the video game. No, I guess it's actually like Empire at War. It's probably more of that. But yeah, no, I don't know. I would play a Star Wars Armada video game if it was, like, I don't like TTS, and I don't like having to learn all the innuendo and scripting and all the shortcuts and stuff like that. It's one of the reasons I like the Fly Casual game for X-Wing, because it's built specifically to be X-Wing. So I would probably play something if it had a very low learning curve and was dedicated towards Star Wars Armada. But at the same time, I really don't like TTS and digital board games because I'd rather play physically. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'll adjust my opinion on that. You know, maybe I will. We'll have to see. All right, you guys. Well, that's gonna do it for this stream. Thank you guys for hanging out, and I guess we'll talk to you guys soon. All right. If you guys just tuned in, though, I'll just recap everything right here at the end. Asmodee selling to the Embracer Group is not completely finalized yet, but it is basically happening. And the Embracer Group is a gaming group in Sweden, I believe, so Europe-centric. It's just a big deal. They're moving, basically, PAI was in France, so they're going to be moving from France to Sweden, presumably. Our games will now be having their strings pulled by people who actually care about gaming. Very good stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to talk to you later. I want to thank you so much for hanging out, and stay tuned for more videos and all that other good stuff. See ya. Have a great day. Don't fight polar bears.